Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about one of the most reliable ways to identify herbs in the wild. So this time of year, I am often sent frequent messages from people either via email, Facebook, or Instagram. Can you please identify this for me? This can be problematic for a few reasons. One, this is a herbalist's busiest time of year, so it can be challenging to get to all of those messages. And I'm just going to let that truck go by. We live in an area where it's pretty loud and we've got a lot of farming vehicles and stuff, so hopefully the microphone picks me up and not them. Another reason why this can be challenging is that sometimes the photos I get are blurry, and other times I'm not getting pictures of the entire plant. For this reason, many herbalists like me are never going to guarantee identification 100% via photo, because if we're incorrect, like goodness, it'd be awful if I gave someone incorrect information. So the best thing to do is to put in your work and learn how to identify herbs in the field yourself. There's an old saying that goes, give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he will eat for life. So I am going to teach you how to identify your herbs so you can do this on your own for the rest of your life. So I don't want you to take what I'm saying as like, I don't want to help you. That's not at all my motive for doing this. Instead, my goal is to empower you. Because if herbalists are too busy, or if we're not able to identify things for you, or perhaps we can't come out to your property and identify in person, I don't want you left not knowing the plants that are on your property. So this is meant to be a message of hope and empowerment so that you can absolutely do this yourself. So there's a lot of apps out there right now. People are using them quite frequently to take pictures of plants and then use them to identify. So what I've noticed, I've tried a few of them out, is they're not 100% reliable. So that can be problematic as well. They're often correct, but they're also often incorrect. One thing that is quite reliable are field guides. And I can't recommend having a good quality field guide enough. So I want to first preface that I am located in Ontario, and so my field guides are for this area. Not necessarily Ontario, but again, like Eastern and Central, right? This would include the United States as well as Canada. So I have 3 field guides here, and I'll kind of very quickly go through the pros and cons of all of them. So this one is the Royal Ontario Museum's field guide. As far as identifying out in the wild, I don't find it very useful. But one thing that they did do that was really, really cool is they have, let me see if I can find them for you, detailed maps. And they've cataloged where all the plants are in Ontario, and they're quite accurate. So the ROM really put in their work for that. So in terms of looking for plants in the wild and wanting to know where to drive to and not just, you know, wandering about the woods all over the place, this would be an excellent book for that. Another really great one would be the Peterson's field guide. They make a whole bunch, like you can do tree field guides, mushrooms, wildflowers, you name it. So Peterson's a decent, reliable one too. But time and time again, I come back to Newcomb's. Now this book's old, like it's been dropped in a couple of rivers and it's been through its day. So I believe the cover is a different color now. I believe it's blue. But the Newcomb's Wildflower guide is my absolute go-to in terms of identifying plants in the wild. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to walk you through an identification of a plant. And we're going to pick one that we are all familiar with so we can get the hang of how to use this book. They're not expensive, you know, they run anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks for a book. It is well worth the investment. If this is something you really want to get into and really want to learn how to do, I definitely recommend the investment. And if you can only afford one, my pick is the Newcomb's. So I'm going to take you through identifying St. John's wort. We're going to look through the book. I'm going to talk to you about how it works, and then we're actually going to identify this yourself. So that way, or ourselves, so that way you have practice with me and then you can practice yourself on your own. All right, so first I'm going to give you a quick look through the book. And this is definitely something you don't want to skip. You do want to read the first few pages. Maybe not the introduction, but you want to start here and understand how their key system works. It's an absolutely ingenious way to categorize plants and how to identify them. So you're basically going to be asking yourselves 5 questions. What flower type do I have? What plant type? And what leaf type? Now don't worry, when you move further on in the pages, it's going to explain all of these terms for you. So for example, flower types: regular, irregular, and indistinguishable. It's going to explain what all of these mean. Basically, a regular flower means that it can be radially divided. It's symmetrical, like a daisy or an echinacea flower. Irregular flowers, see, like right there, it shows you Jack in the Pulpit. There's really no way to divide a Jack in the Pulpit flower on all different radiuses to be able to make it symmetrical. So this would be considered an irregular flower. So I definitely, again, recommend that you take the time to read these terms. How the leaves are arranged on the plant. Basal leaves, these are leaves that only appear on the bottom of a plant. Alternate means that the leaves alternate their way up the stem. Opposite means that the leaves are directly across from each other. And whorled means that the leaves appear or grow in almost like a circular fashion around the plant. And then finally, you need to know what type of leaf. Are the leaves entire, toothed, lobed, or divided? And they have great pictures to explain what all of these things mean. So that's the first thing you're going to do when you get your field guide, is you're going to familiarize yourselves with these terms. So that way, when you go to identify your first plant, it's going to make sense for you. So we're going to identify St. John's wort. Now it helps to identify a plant that we're already familiar with. It makes life a little bit easier. So we're going to take a look at St. John's wort now. So the first thing we're going to do is zoom in on the flower. So right away, we notice that the flower is considered a regular flower type, meaning that it can be divided symmetrically. So we're going to take a look at the flower type in the book. It's not an irregular. It's a flower with 5 regular parts. So now we just remember the number 5. Next, we're going to move on to plant type. And this describes how the leaves attach, or whether it's a shrub or a vine. It's definitely not a shrub or a vine. And there are definitely leaves. So it's going to be either 2, 3, or 4. So let's go take a look at the leaves and find out what it is. If we get a really close look, and my husband's trying his best here, it gets blurry when he first goes in. If we take let's see. If we take a really close look, maybe right down here at the leaves, we can see they are directly across from each other. This is considered an opposite leaf plant. They're not alternating up the stem, and they are not in a whorl pattern. They are directly opposite each other. So we're going to go back to our field guide, and wildflowers with opposite or whorled leaves are a 4. So now we have the key 5, 4. We're going to keep those numbers in our head. Next, we're going to look at the leaf type. Well, there's definitely leaves, so we know it's not number 1. So are the leaves entire, toothed or lobed, or divided? Let's take another look at those leaves. One of the reasons I picked St. John's wort is that this is a really easy one to figure out. If we look at the leaves, there's no teeth, there's no margins, they're not lobed, they're smooth along the outside and entire. So back to our key. 5, 4, and entire leaves is 2. So we're now going to go to the numbered index. So you have your number, your 542. There we go. And we're going to use our locator key. And then the plants are then grouped by numbers along the side. So what we're looking for is number 542. So I'll flip along. Oh, and I missed it. All right, so 542 starts here. So now we have a few other questions that we have to answer, but they're pretty easy. So first, the leaves are entire. Yes, we know. So the next question is, do the petals grow together to form a tube, bell, or cup? The answer to this is no. So anything indented under here does not apply, and the group continues on the next page. See how it says leaves entire continued? Awesome. The petals separate, but the sepals are united into a tube. That's not correct either. So we need to move here. Both sepals and petals, if present, are separate or appearing to be separate. Let's take a look at that flower again. The sepals are definitely quite visible, and they're separate from the petals on the flower. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a tip here. I'm going to go back to 542 and take a look at the page numbers. See how it says page at the top here? This is our group number. This is the page it's going to refer you to. You can see that this section of 542 starts at page 246 and ends at page 274. So worst case scenario, you can flip through all those pages until you find the picture of the plant you're looking for. That's not perfectly accurate, but at least you know it's going to be within that range. So we now know that both the sepals and the petals, which they are present, are separate. Excellent. So now we bump ourselves down the index or the indented line here and ask ourselves the next question. Plants with milky juice like milkweed? Nope, definitely not. They're juicy, and they are. If I actually, and I've probably showed this to you before, but if I squeeze a St. John's wort flower, it's quite juicy. That's where the high Peterson comes out. Juice, but not milky? Sure, that's absolutely correct. Yellow flowers. Bingo. So I'm going to go to page 266, and I know that my plant is going to be in and around the page 266. So off I go. Oh, 208. Gone too far. I'll have to play some nice music in the background while I fumble through page flipping. All right, so here's page 266. Yellow flowers, petals separate or appearing so. And I'm not seeing the picture of my plant here, but oftentimes it's going to be in and around because this continues on to the next page. Continued, yellow flowers, petals separate or appearing so. And goodness golly, there's common St. John's wort. So as you can see, I've walked you through the identifying of a plant, and once you understand the key terms and you understand what whorl means and entire leaves and toothed and lobed and what an irregular flower plant looks like, and this book gives you all of that information, it's actually pretty easy to work your way through and identify plants in the wild. I think I maybe have one or two occasions in memory where I've been out in the wild and I've tried to use my field guide and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And that's a great time. You know, take your pictures then, ask your botany friends, ask your plant nerd friends, contact your local herbalist and see if you can figure out what it is. Sometimes plants aren't wild if they're in the wild. They can easily escape from someone's garden if there's residential areas in and around that area. But working through a field guide is really going to empower you to know that you can do this. This is not something that is out of your reach or out of your knowledge or comfort zone. It just takes a bit of practice, just like anything else. No one was born knowing how to ride a bike or drive a car or cook a meal, but we all figured out how to do these things. And that's my goal with this YouTube channel and with these videos, is to empower you guys to start learning how to make medicine and work with plants, and in this case, learn how to identify plants. So I hope you guys found this video at least somewhat helpful to learn how to identify herbs in the wild. My friend St. John's wort and I, thank you so much for being here and checking out this video. If you like my content, I definitely appreciate a thumbs up or a subscription to my channel. And until next time, this is Correne from Spirea Herbs saying peace and happy identifying.